So we're moving on to our third and final speaker before we break for lunch. Okay, so I'll introduce Jasmine Violet. It's a great pleasure for me actually to introduce Jasmine this morning because we have been working together a year or so ago on projects, and I have a high opinion of Jasmine as a very astute thinker, an artist, and she has helped us a great deal at the National Library with projects around decolonisation. So I'm looking forward to the talk this morning. Jasmine started her artistic journey in the vibrant Welsh art scene after graduating from art school in 2020. Since then, while pursuing a PhD at Aberystwyth University School of Art, she has been involved in various projects, including Perspectives, and served as a Diversity Engagement Officer at the National Library of Wales. Jasmine is influenced by the complexities of psyche, identity and subconscious thought, exploring themes of mental health and her identity as a black woman within both Welsh and British culture. As an interdisciplinary artist, her creative repertoire encompasses a range of mediums, including Polaroid photography, experimental cyanotype printmaking, which is extremely beautiful if you've ever seen it, and also oil painting. So diolch yn fawr iawn I ti, Jasmine, if you can join us.
Hello and welcome. As Nia so gracefully introduced me, I need to figure out how this works 1 minute with the... Which clicky button? Do you know? What's the button? There you go, bear with me. So yeah, as Nia so gracefully said, I've been working in the arts for the last 4 and 5 years. I actually, before going to university, I actually went to College Ceredigion, so I am a regular and a local of Aberystwyth. My dad is also a local, if you know Iris, he runs the bar there. My work has really ranged from, like Nia said, from looking at my own psyche, at my own mental health, to more recently looking at who I am as a woman of colour within Wales. So this talk is kind of going to look at a few projects that I've been working on, one of which being the maps exhibition that was done here with myself and a couple more other artists, where we were looking at colonial artefacts within the National Library and reacting to them. We're also going to explore how art is a great avenue to start conversations on decolonisation and kind of more sensitive objects which institutions are wanting to engage with diverse audiences. Also going to invite for dialogue, obviously during the questionnaire, the questions afterwards, for what you believe is important when it comes to decolonisation within institutions. So this project that I did with the National Library was a really interesting one. So my heritage is from St Kitts and Nevis and Jamaica. So I was born here, my mum was born here, but her parents came over during the Windrush. So my connection to the Caribbean is through legacy rather than through culture. So when I was presented with the maps of plantations in Jamaica, I really sat down for quite a long while and thought about how I was going to react to this. Because a lot of the times when projects are introduced to global majority peoples, we're kind of expected to process the trauma and to process the negative emotions which come with doing this work, and kind of despite that still get on with it. So I really wanted to look at this work from a different lens, because like I said, a lot of the projects to do with anti-racism are quite traumatic, especially for people of colour who often have to front it. So I kind of sat down and I looked at my experiences of being a person of colour in Wales, my experience of land, my experience of agriculture, and really looked at the fact that I have a choice. I moved to Wales, I had a choice to be here, I had a choice to engage with the culture and with the environment. So for me, it was actually looking at the fact that really and truly my experience of maps of land was a positive one. It was a celebratory one. So I almost completely disregarded the information when it came to what was wanted, because I really wanted to look at the work and look at these plantation maps and almost say, this isn't all we are as people of colour. We're not just monoliths. There is so much more to our experience than slavery and colonisation. So what I did was I did 2 images. I did this one first, which is called Stepping Stones, which is an image of my 3 younger brothers up in Trwy, which is my experience of agriculture. When I first moved to Wales, I was dropped in the middle of nowhere, somewhere that there was a bus twice a week, 3 times a day. So it was such a juxtaposition from going from that to living in Reading. And yeah, it was that celebration of being in nature and enjoying it and experiencing the vibrantness of the Welsh landscape and the Welsh land. So it was really, for me, I really wanted to turn it on its head and explore what we're doing, what people of colour are doing other than, and talking about and experiencing other than slavery and trauma. The second image I did was of myself, which actually, this isn't actually too far away from here. It's by the butterfly sanctuary. So it was one of the last images I took with a ex-partner of mine before we decided to go our separate ways. So again, it's, you know, my experience of Wales, my experience of navigating community and relationships and integrating into the Welsh culture. Another amazing project that we worked on, which is whilst I was whilst I was engagement officer here at the National Library, was the Art Archive project. This was an amazing project which I worked with Nia and a few other members of the RQ team. It was a project which we really wanted to find ways within the archives to engage more with diverse communities. Something that many of you might notice within archives is that it is still a very Eurocentric facing kind of like collection. So not a lot of work over the last couple hundred years has been collected to do with people of colour, even though people of colour have been in Wales way before during Roman times. So there is a legacy of people of colour here. So I'm actually going to pass this out so people can look around. This is just a little book from the exhibition. So what we did, we decided to do 6 workshops across Wales, 2 in Cardiff, 2 here in Aberystwyth and 2 here in Wrexham. And the aim of this project was to create brand new archives which represented the diverse communities in Wales. We had people from all over the world, especially in Wrexham, where we collaborated with Race Equality First, who brought an amazing array of people from, you know, sub-Saharan Africa to refugees from across the world. And it was just such a beautiful moment to see this shared experience. And it wasn't just people, you know, praising Wales and saying how amazing it was proof, and it was gritty, and it was people explaining their experiences of racism, their experiences of just integrating. And I think that's such an important part of understanding the ins and outs of our society, is not shying away from the tough truths. We can't glorify ourselves all the time. We have to sit down with ourselves and actually say there are still systems within our society which don't serve everyone. So the project was funded by Welsh Government Anti-Racist Fund and was part of the Archive Action for Change. So you can actually, I believe that So all the information is online, so the booklet is also available online for you to view as well. And in total, we ended up having over 50 pieces of work, artworks which we're creating during these workshops, which range from collage to Polaroid photography, to all sort of stuff. We also worked with some really amazing artists, because obviously being an artist myself, I understand that art is languageless. It's a great way to communicate with people across different languages, different creeds, different experiences. It is such an accessible way to start conversations and engage with other individuals. So these are just some photos from the workshops. We worked with Grangetown Pavilion as well, which was again a really amazing community group. We really wanted to do half of the workshops within community centres, because we also understand as institutions there's a lot of distrust, so we really wanted to provide a safe space for them initially, for them then to feel more comfortable to come up to the institutions to do another workshop. It was just incredible. It was such a beautiful moment and a beautiful experience to see such an array of communities come together and understand and share their experiences. Like I said, a lot of the time English wasn't their first language or Welsh wasn't their first language, but what we wanted to do and the array of different types of art and different types of messages which were sent just came through straight away. We had people talking to each other about how they moved here and their lives in Wales, and it was such an incredible experience. Photos. Yeah, as you can see, and something which I also found really interesting was the array of art styles, from simple things to doing mendi, so it's henna tattoos but on paper, to representing their motherland flags, to you've got a Welsh flag there. It's these individuals were so proud to be part of this community, and I think we need to show that within archiving, because it's they are celebrating this society as much as anyone else, but it's not being shown publicly or within archives and collections. So that's the link to the booklet, which is obviously going around. So we invited an amazing artist and illustrator called Frank Duffy to create the booklets. We really wanted to work with diverse artists and individuals throughout the whole project. So we really aim to work with as many different individuals as possible. So another amazing project which has been going on over the last 2 years is Perspectives. This was a project which was run from the Art Council of Wales, again with the anti-racism funding. It was a project which 7 artists were involved in, myself one of them, and we were asked to work with a national museum and an art school, an art institution. And so I worked with the National Slate Museum and Aberystwyth Art Centre. I worked with the amazing Mae'n down here to do some research into Penrhyd Castle and into the connections between Penrhyd Castle and Jamaica. We spent a few days and went down to Bangor Archives to pull out some writings and stuff like that between Lord Pennant and his planters in Jamaica. And it was such an interesting experience because I didn't know about the connections between the sugar trade and the slate mining and the funding of the slate mining in Wales. And I don't think it's something that isn't really conversated enough, because slate is such an integral part of Welsh culture. So to kind of miss out the monetary side of it and the building of it is devastating, to be honest. So as part of the project, I was working, we decided to do a performance up in North Wales at Penrhyd Castle, which involved myself making sugar busts of myself and inlaying them with glow-in-the-dark material. And I'm actually going to, I don't know how I do this, but I'm actually going to show it to you now. So this is actually a premiere of the performance. So this piece is really looking at about how the traces, no matter what, they're still there. You know, we can try and sugarcoat it. We can try and, you know, make it palatable, but it's still there. The conversations still need to be had. So it's very much, you know, talking about not just obviously the sugar trade, but any conversation to do with race and decolonisation. It needs to be had and needs to, you know, have an opportunity to, you know, be sparred. You know, it's not a black and white conversation. You know, institutions will get it wrong, but that's okay. You know, there's not an expectation to get things right all the time. As long as you're engaging with the communities it affects and they have a voice within it, you know, the expectation of things going wrong, well, you know, it's okay. And I think that's something that institutions need to really think about, is that fear that they hold to do stuff or to get it wrong. So the other heart of the the perspective projects is up at the National Library, not National Library, here at the National Library, up at the Art Centre at the moment, which was, we invited 7 artists to do creative workshops and then produce work in relation to the themes of multiplicity, which is almost completely the opposite to the other side of it, which is actually, it's portraying the fact that, artists of colour are artists before they are people of colour, that there is still very much a categorizing of black artists or diverse artists before they are just artists, and that comes with that expectation of what their work should be and look like, and this exhibition completely throws that on its head. We are expressing just lived experience within Wales as people who live in Wales who happen to be people of colour. So yeah, it's a really great exhibition. It's until the 1st of June, so if you have a chance, give me a chance today after this, go up and have a nosy. And yeah, so that's kind of, what I really wanted to do. Redefining narratives is a massive part of making any society a collective, and making all the voices that are shared, heard. It's so important to engage with the arts as ways of navigating things that aren't autistic. Like, it's so important. Something I say when I was is that when we were younger in preschool and in nursery, we're taught to play, we're taught to create, we're taught to make, and then you go to secondary school and it's all kind of just rubbed out of you. It's all completely taught to be academic, and you're taught that art isn't a real job and you can't make money from it. And where really and truly you could teach so many different things through artistic practice. So obviously I'm 100% for more collaborations with artists, no matter what the collaboration is, more community work, and more exhibitions exploring what is Welsh art within a broader diverse lens. And yeah, some key takeaways: Arts and Archive is a powerful tool, and creative inclusive practice are vital to challenging decolonial established narratives. Thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr, Jasmine. Thank you very much. Again, there's some opportunity for questions. Marianne, chi eisiau dechrau? The mic is on the way. We don't have translation facilities at the moment. And the translator kindly asks the person that has got her headset with the name Heledd on it, can you give it back to me at the end of the session, please? Has anybody got one with a sticker saying Heledd rather than the National Library one? Gan Dan, ie? Ti di ffindo fe? Gret, diolch, okay. Sorry, Marianne, cwestiwn gan Marianne yn Saesneg, felly, diolch.
Yeah. Oh, Violet, after seeing that, Jasmine, it was just blew me away. It's been such a pleasure working with you on just a tiny part of what you've been doing. There's so many questions I want to ask you, but yeah, at the beginning you spoke about your journey through art, about how to help you regarding exploring mental health, exploring yourself through creativity. Now that you've come so far and you're now on your step towards a PhD, are you realising that? Are you achieving your aims of that first journey when you started your steps in art?
It's honestly, I didn't think I would be going, I'd never thought I'd be going down a decolonial lens. Like, where I grew up in Ascot, so that is a very middle upper class area, so my experience of blackness, compared to my cousins in Birmingham who are very integrated within the Caribbean community, was so different. It wasn't until me moving to Wales was really me rediscovering my blackness and my own heritage and stuff like that. So it really has been Wales which has reconnected me to wanting to explore my practice as a diverse artist, but also what is the history of it here, what is the past, the present and the future of global majority artists in Wales. So yeah, it's been a really interesting change of direction in terms of my own personal practice. I think within my own personal practice I still very much deal with like I said, identity and the psyche and stuff like that, but you know, in terms of my other work, I really enjoy supporting. You know, that's something that I've always done. I like uplifting and supporting. So for me, it's just been being able to do the best of both worlds, which is really nice to have the moment for myself, but then also separate myself from my work and engage with communities and individuals.
We are so lucky you made that journey to Wales. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Question gan Iwan?
Yeah, question. It's great to see this, and also I just wondered how, you know, there aren't role models in Wales for artists of colour kind of thing. So, what parts of the world have you looked at for artists that would do that? And I wondered if you'd seen the work of Bernie Searle from South Africa, and she showed in Artis Mundi, brought her here one year. Because they were similar with that film, just made me think of the work that she had, video film.
Yeah, so funny enough, a lot of my influences, so during university, I discovered about the Black Art group in the Midlands, British Black Art movement, and that was really kind of setting on the trajectory to discover more about what was happening in Wales during that time as well, and why there hasn't really been a conversation about diverse artists within Wales from the 80s to now. So yeah, that was really, you know, the conversations about essentialism versus anti-essentialism was massive, because within my own practice I'm 100% anti-essentialism. My work looks at all aspects of my being, or of the being, rather than you know, kind of relating to just blackness and to just being of the diaspora, which essentialism kind of sits within. And I feel like the essentialist kind of theory kind of very much sits into how institutions see how black art should be. Like, it should be about Africa, it should be about colonialism, it should be about slavery, it should be about, you know, police brutality, but really that is just such a small section of the black experience. So yeah, so a lot of influence, Keith Piper, Marlene Smith, Donald Rodley, sorry. So yeah, so very inspired by their work, and just wanting to really see if we can do a Welsh black art movement, or Welsh, you know, get that going. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
A question van hyn? There's a question.
Yeah.
And that was just so inspiring. I'm an embroiderer and I've done a lot of community work, but the response in Wales is different. They're willing to get, well, I can't say they are, there's a wish to develop and mark things, and Pans and Llanymynech was the first big one that I worked on, and it was a community project, and we were just going to do a panel about the rock and everything. We ended up with 15 panels, and they're in the church, and then the local carpenter came in, who was from Bangladesh, and said, well, why don't we make these into panels that will go together? And it's still going, you know, and it's just, and don't forget the Canna Mason family either. You know, that came from Pennell. It was, you know, they holidayed there, and we were just, they come every year to Mahanclith to the griddle at the tabernacle, and it's an extraordinary little country, but it knows who it is, you know. But I'm just joking about it. Incredibly, it's the response is wonderful. We're restoring all the church textiles in Abu Dhabi, and they're coming out of the woodwork. You know, it's great. Anyway, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch. Are there any questions online, Dan?
A lot of positive comments, but no questions or so.
Okay. Any other questions from the room? There's one here.
I think we're quite lucky in Wales, having having a measure of devolution and the possibility of a fairly progressive politics to evolve. But we've seen how easy it is for a malevolent state to just sweep away all the kinds of supports that have been made available for people to express themselves in this way. Can you carry on working in the way that you do if you find yourself in the circumstances of a more oppressive political and financial climate?
I will find a way. I will always find a way. Like I said, I've worked in the National Library. Before that, I was at university, and before that, I was doing a lot of research and just messaging institutions to find out what their plans are and what they're doing. In terms of, getting the work done, it is very much a situation now that, as artists, as people of colour, we just got to do it for ourselves and hope that institutions will notice. Because if that's the case, then we're not relying on anyone. I don't need to rely on institutions to do the work. But then there's also, there can't be expectation that every artist of colour wants to do that. Because a lot of the time that expectation of just because they're an artist of colour that they want to do decolonial work isn't, sometimes they just want to paint flowers, do you know what I mean? There is that very much in-depth sort of thinking about it, and then something that my dad always says that I'm no longer speaking to the centre. I stopped speaking to the centre a long time ago. I'm very much, making work for people of colour. My work is a person of colour's work for people of colour. So if people want to engage with it, that's amazing. But it's not for the white gaze, do you know what I mean? It's very much for the experience, the lived experience to feel relatable within Welsh culture. It's the fact that, despite all the negativities and, like you said, if the government decides they're going to drop DEI in the next whenever, then all funding goes. It has to be up to not just artists but institutions to put the funding aside for themselves, because if you're relying on governmental structure, then once that structure's gone, the support then is gone, and then everyone's left. It's just gone. So it is very much that institutions need to almost do decolonial work despite of funding, despite of governmental decisions and stuff like that. Need to be done for themselves, and that's what I'm doing within my own practice.
On that note, unfortunately, there's quite concerning news from Bangor University. You mentioned the Castell Penrhyn collection. There was news yesterday that they're facing cutbacks to such extent that they're facing closure at Bangor University Archives, which is a massively important collection. So that was quite worrying news. Oes cwestiwn arall? Wel, a cwestiwn fyny?
Thank you. Thanks, Jasmine. It was really fantastic, really interesting to see your visual work. I wondered whether, well, I've got to choose between two questions I want to ask. But so, have you got any examples of Black Welsh art that has been kind of erased or ignored or hidden, during your research so far? You can have that one, right? Or you can have a different one if you want to jump off that one.
Well, so I've been doing a lot of research into just the migration of people of colour in Wales, and it's been, something that I've realised in terms of my research is that a lot of the artefacts I'm going to find are going to come from community collections, because there's still a lot of distrust between how artefacts will be cared for, and if they're ever going to be seen again, or if they're just going to disappear into the ether. So whilst doing that research, I was doing a bit of research about an institute up in Conway Bay called the Congo House, which was ran by a ministry who wanted to educate people from Cameroon, for them to go back to Cameroon, to them to preach the gospel and stuff like that. So that's obviously, it was an interesting learning about this kind of like colonial collection, because this is late 20th century, so early 20th century. So it's obviously post-slavery, but still in that time within kind of like Dutch rule of the Congo and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And so from that, doing my research, I discovered that there was a autograph book which was owned by the daughter of the minister, not the minister, William Hughes. And within this autograph book, there was poetry, there were songs, but there was also sketches. And for me, that's like I basically jumped out of my chair, because this is probably one of the earliest recorded pieces of artistic practice from people of colour in Wales. So I'm hoping to find more further back, but that in itself has made me realise that a lot of if I'm going to find stuff, it's going to be through a conversation or through someone from the gentry talking about maybe some sketches or something that were done in the free time and stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of searching, but again, the fact that these little artifacts are there, it gives me excitement, so there's going to be more. So, yeah. Thank you.
Last chance for questions now before we head for lunch. Okay, so thank you very much to Jasmine. And thanks to all three speakers this morning. I'm sure we all agree that it's been a really, really interesting morning. So there's plenty of time for lunch now, and also time for you to go to see, first of all, the exhibition in the Summers room. So that exhibition, when you go out here, up the steps, it's the room there. So that is the exhibition that's been specially prepared for you by Hugh and Ellie and our curators at the National Library, especially for this conference. So please make sure that you see that exhibition. And also, as we mentioned, there's another exhibition in the main Oriel gallery upstairs, which is the Gregynnog Gallery, where Peter Lord's exhibition, No Welsh Art. I'm sure there will be pieces there that are very pertinent for the conversations we've been having this morning. So please return by 2 o'clock. There's also a bit of time for you to pop into our shop, where there are some books that have been displayed, especially of interest to the conference today. Have I forgotten to say something about the arrangements? Is that okay? Okay, so if that's all I need to say as well is thanks for coming this morning. I'd like to give a special thanks to our team at the library, who work so hard to get this conference together every year. And I'm sure you enjoy it every year, and it's really developing into a special place in the calendar at the National Library. So thanks to not only Hugh and Ellie, but also the broader graphic team who are contributing, and the events team and IT who all pull it together. And also, if I may, give a special thanks this year to the staff at the Commission, who we're arranging this in partnership with them. And as Chodri alluded to at the beginning of the day, it's been quite a difficult time at the National Library in terms of cutbacks, and we've really relied on the partnership and the co-working with the Commission this year to get this done. So we really appreciated of the cooperation that has gone on to get this event going, and I'm so happy that it's such a success. So enjoy your lunch, make sure you're back by 2 o'clock. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd. Don't take these with you anywhere, please. Please hand them in on the way out.